I came home from a grueling week of electrical work last weekend, only to find a self-proclaimed safety expert had turned my DIY boathouse into her personal violation inspection hub. This woman, Ellen Carver, was insisting I install a $15,000 flotation safety system, claiming my structure was a death trap. What she didn't know was that those very life rafts she demanded would soon take her on an unscheduled cruise to the middle of the lake. When she dialed 911, screaming, "I'm being kidnapped by a boathouse," I just sat there, sipping my beer, wondering if I should cue up some tunes. Guess where I'm sharing this from? Drop a comment below with your location, because this tale gets wild, and I want to know who's along for the ride. After a long week crawling through attics and rewiring old homes, I was ready for some peace at my lakeside retreat. But instead, I found my boathouse surrounded by a folding table, a laptop, and a sign reading Lakeside Safety Inspection Station. I'd spent 2 years building that boathouse by hand. Every board, every nail a labor of love for quiet evenings watching sunsets with a cold one. It wasn't fancy, but it was sturdy, built to last, and perfect for escaping the daily grind. The woman at the table looked up as I approached, her neatly styled auburn hair glinting in the sun. She wore a crisp navy polo with an official-looking emblem and clutched a clipboard like it was a scepter. Her setup was slick, professional signage, stacks of paperwork, even a small printer humming away. "You must be Nathan Carter," she said with a smile that set my nerves on edge. The kind politicians flash before announcing bad news. I froze, glancing from her to my boathouse and back, feeling like I'd walked into my own home to find someone rearranging my life. "Safety violations," she declared, pointing at my boathouse. "Sir, I'm not even in your HOA. My property ends at the water, and last I checked, I can build what I want on my land." But Ellen just shook her head with a patronizing look that made my blood simmer. She gestured at my boathouse with her pen, like she was scolding a misbehaving child. "Ignorance of safety regulations isn't an excuse, Mr. Carter," she said, flipping through her clipboard with practiced ease. "Your structure lacks mandatory life-preserving equipment. The railings are too low per county standards, and there are no warning signs. This is a drowning hazard waiting to happen. Frankly, I'm shocked the county hasn't shut you down." She handed me a typed list that looked official, letterhead, reference numbers, and jargon that could fool anyone who hadn't studied safety codes. "These upgrades will bring your structure into compliance," she said with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every episode of a legal drama. "Flotation devices, enhanced railings, emergency lighting, and signage. Total cost, about $15,000. You have 48 hours to start, or I'll file a formal complaint with the county and possibly the state environmental agency." $15,000? I nearly choked. That was months of mortgage payments for a boathouse I'd used safely for 2 years, where the worst accident was slipping on wet boards after one too many beers. Something felt wrong, like a faint buzz in an electrical panel warning of trouble. Her polished presentation and confident demeanor made me second-guess myself. I'd pulled permits, followed codes, even overbuilt in places to ensure durability. Could I have missed some obscure rule? That doubt, I later realized, was exactly what Ellen was banking on. Honest people questioning themselves when faced with authority. "Look, Ellen," I said, keeping my voice steady despite my rising irritation. "I appreciate the concern, but this seems over the top. Can you show me the exact county regulations requiring this?" She tapped her clipboard, flashing that condescending smile again. "Mr. Carter, I don't have time to walk you through every municipal code. The requirements are in my report, referencing the proper authorities. You have 48 hours, or this becomes a legal issue with inspectors, fines, and potential insurance problems." With that, she packed up her portable office with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times and left, leaving me with a $15,000 ultimatum and a growing suspicion I'd been targeted by a pro. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ellen's demands looped in my head, so I did what any sensible person would do. I dove into research. Hours on county websites, safety regulations, and municipal codes revealed the truth, and it made me furious. There were no mandatory inspections for private boathouses. The railing height standards she cited? non-existent for residential waterfront structures. Her violations were pure fiction. I printed the real regulations, highlighting every relevant section to shut down her scam. The next morning, I called my neighbor, Sam Torres, who ran a boat repair shop nearby. Sam had lived on the lake for 15 years and knew everyone. Ellen Carver, he said when I described her. Yeah, she showed up 6 months ago and started stirring trouble, hitting properties with fake violations and pushing costly fixes. Most folks pay to avoid the hassle. That sealed it. Sam added, I checked her certifications online. Nothing. No licensing. No credentials for an Ellen Carver as a safety consultant in the state database. And she's working with some contractor who quotes insane prices for simple jobs. Something's fishy. Armed with my research and Sam's intel, I marched to Ellen's house that afternoon. She answered the door with her usual authoritative air, but her confidence flickered when she saw my stack of printouts. Ellen, I said, spreading the county documents on her porch table, I reviewed the actual safety regulations for private waterfront structures. Oddly, none of your violations are in the official codes. Her face flushed, but she recovered quickly. County codes are just minimums, she snapped. As a certified safety professional, I recommend best practices that exceed those to protect HOA liability and property values. Show me your certifications, I demanded. If you're threatening legal action over $15,000, I want proof you're legit. Her jaw tightened, and for the first time, her facade cracked. My credentials are on file with the authorities, she said stiffly. I don't need to justify my expertise to someone who doesn't grasp liability issues. Her dodge told me everything. She was running a scam, preying on people who didn't know better. But instead of calling her out, I decided to play her game and dig deeper. You're right about liability, I said, feigning agreement. Bring that contractor by tomorrow to discuss the equipment. Her eyes gleamed, likely seeing dollar signs, and she agreed. As I walked away, I was already planning to expose her scheme. The next day, Ellen arrived with a burly man in work boots and a faded polo emblazoned with Jim's Marine Safety Solutions. Jim had a handshake that screamed overcompensation and a mustache straight out of an 80s cop show. He spent 10 minutes measuring my boathouse, scribbling on a generic work order form, then turned to me. Nathan, Ellen's spot on about the safety issues, he said, using my first name like we were buddies. You need a full flotation system, Coast Guard-approved railings, emergency lighting, and hazard signage. My quote's $18,000, but since I work with Ellen, I'll do it for $15,500. I nodded, mentally noting the absurdity. $18,000 for gear I could buy for a fraction of that. Sounds fair. Elite. Can you break down the costs? Jim handed me an itemized quote so inflated it could have doubled as a life raft. $300 life vest that cost $30 at Walmart. $800 dock lights available online for $50. Excusing myself to use the bathroom, I called Sam from inside my house. Get quotes for Boathouse safety gear. Life vests, lights, signs, everything. And check out Jim's Marine Safety Solutions online. 20 minutes later, Sam called back. The real cost for Jim's required gear? Under $3,000. Jim's company? No license, no insurance. Just a shoddy website that screamed amateur. Sam also found that Ellen and Jim had hit 3 other lake properties in the past month, always with the same fake violations and overpriced fixes. When I confronted Jim about the pricing, his friendly act vanished. Look, pal, he growled, you get what you pay for. My gear has warranties and professional installation. Want to risk your family's safety with cheap stuff? Your call, but don't cry when someone gets hurt. Ellen chimed in, rattling off threats about insurance liability and lawsuits if my unsafe boathouse caused an accident. Their rehearsed tag team routine was obvious, but I was done being played. You're right, I said, pretending to fold. Let's do the installation. Their faces lit up, probably calculating their cut. But they didn't know I had a plan to turn their scam against them. The next morning, I hit 3 marine supply stores across 2 counties, buying everything Jim listed, but with a twist. As an electrician with a decade of experience and mechanical know-how from working with contractors, I was ready to get creative. With Sam's help, We designed a flotation system that met all legitimate safety standards, but doubled as a trap. The key was a hydraulic lift disguised as mounting hardware for the safety gear. To any inspector, it looked like standard equipment: flotation chambers, brackets, backup inflation systems. But with a switch, those rafts could inflate and lift the entire boathouse off its foundation, turning it into a slow-moving boat. Sam was skeptical. "Nathan, this is genius, but what if it goes wrong? What if she gets hurt? What if you get arrested?" I considered all that. The system had safety cutoffs, redundant mechanisms, and emergency deflation to return the boathouse to normal in minutes. Plus, I was documenting every interaction with Ellen and Jim to protect myself legally. The installation took 3 days, with Ellen dropping by to micromanage, unaware she was helping perfect her own downfall. The hydraulic pumps were hidden in equipment storage boxes, the flotation chambers blended into the boathouse's supports, and the control system masqueraded as a standard electrical panel. On the final day, Ellen arrived with her clipboard, ready to nitpick. "I need to inspect every component," she announced, testing railings, counting life vests, and scrutinizing connections, looking for excuses to inflate the bill. "The installation's adequate," she finally said, though she flagged minor issues to justify her presence. "But I'll need an overnight safety assessment to test real-world conditions. Equipment must function under stress, and I take my responsibilities seriously. I'll be here tomorrow evening to verify everything meets my standards." Perfect. She was walking right into my trap. The next evening, Ellen arrived after sunset with an overnight bag, thermos, paperwork, camping gear, and a portable heater, setting up a full-on monitoring station in my boathouse. Her thoroughness was impressive, hinting at a scam far more sophisticated than I'd thought. This wasn't a one-off. She had a system for milking victims with follow-ups and extra fees. Around 9 p.m., she called me over to discuss adjustments, likely to assert control. "The lighting's fine for visibility," she said, scribbling notes, "but I'm concerned about the flotation system's response time in an emergency. It needs testing." She was about to get a real-time demo. I agreed to her tests and returned home to wait. Around midnight, with Ellen settled in and her lights off, I activated the system via my phone. The hydraulics hummed quietly, pressurizing the flotation chambers and lifting the boathouse. It was surreal watching the structure glide into the lake like a ghost ship, carrying its unsuspecting passenger. Ellen woke when the motion hit, probably thinking it was just wind. Then came confused shuffling, lights snapping on, and the door slamming open. Her scream echoed across the lake. "What the hell is happening? Nathan Carter, what did you do?" The irony was rich. A safety expert in pajamas, panicking on a floating boathouse. She called 911, her voice frantic. "I'm trapped on a building in the middle of the lake. No, I'm not drunk. The boathouse is moving. I'm being kidnapped by a house. Send help." The dispatcher must have been baffled. Ellen stood on the deck in her bathrobe, waving at the shore like she was signaling a rescue plane, screaming about lawsuits. Her expertise didn't cover actual emergencies. She was unraveling. 20 minutes later, a police boat arrived, its spotlight illuminating the bizarre scene. A boathouse adrift with a woman in a bathrobe ranting about maritime kidnapping. Officer Sarah Mills, a 5-year veteran, struggled to keep a straight face as Ellen ranted. "This man committed terrorism against me. He hijacked a building with me inside. This is kidnapping and false imprisonment." I stood on shore with my flashlight, satisfied my plan had worked. When Officer Mills asked for my side, I handed over a folder of evidence, recordings, emails, photos, and a timeline exposing Ellen's scam. "Officer, this woman's been extorting lake residents with fake violations and inflated repair costs. She's no safety consultant, has no authority, and works with an unlicensed contractor to scam people. I've got proof of her targeting 6 other families." Then my neighbor, George Ellis, rode up in his fishing boat. I knew George as a quiet retiree who loved reading on his dock. What I didn't know was that he was a retired insurance investigator with 30 years of fraud experience. "Officer Mills," he said calmly, "I'm George Ellis. I've been tracking Ellen's fraudulent safety claims for weeks. Nathan's case is part of a larger criminal operation. His evidence was airtight. Ellen had hit 6 families with fake violations, always with Jim, collecting over $90,000. Worse, they filed false insurance claims, scamming both homeowners and insurers by billing for unneeded or shoddy work. George revealed Ellen's real name, Margaret Ellen Hayes, a career criminal with fraud convictions in 3 states. Her operation spanned 7 states, defrauding victims of over $500,000. It involved 20 fake consultants, unlicensed contractors, and corrupt insurance adjusters. They'd even created safety hazards with defective equipment, like faulty life preservers and substandard electrical work. Federal agents took over, tracing Ellen's phone records to accomplices and uncovering a network that exploited safety fears with fake credentials and inflated claims. Ellen faced charges of insurance fraud, racketeering, and mail fraud, with up to 20 years in prison. Her assets, including her lake house and vehicles, were frozen for victim restitution. Jim and his crew faced similar charges for unlicensed work and endangering safety. The irony? Their safety fixes violated real codes, creating hazards they claimed to prevent. The aftermath was a win for our community. The insurance company rewarded us for exposing the fraud, saving them millions. My boathouse became a local legend, drawing visitors to see the crime scene. A newspaper ran a feature, and I did a TV interview on spotting scams. My $2,000 in legit safety upgrades, flotation, lighting, railings, actually improved the boathouse, proving rail safety doesn't need threats or crazy costs. I added a sign, "Safety inspected. Scammers will be floated." The case set legal precedents, helping other communities fight similar scams. George consulted with law enforcement, sharing his expertise. The insurance industry used our case to tighten fraud detection. Ellen's 911 call about a kidnapping boathouse became a local tale, retold at barbecues. Standing up to scammers didn't just protect me, it shielded our community. The federal prosecutor called my floating boathouse the most creative evidence he'd seen, and the poetic justice of using Ellen's own demands against her was unforgettable. So, that's how I used life rafts to catch a scammer running a $500,000 fraud ring. Who'd have thought a fake safety expert would be the lake's real danger? Her water hazard warnings ended with her taking a midnight cruise that exposed her crimes. Got a scammer story? Share it below, and stay tuned for more lakeside living drama, where even safety gear fights back.